You're listening to Three's a Crowd, the North East Footy Podcast, with Rye for Borough, Steve for Newcastle United, and Ted for Sunderland.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Three's a Crowd podcast, where we discuss the 2025 Carabao Cup winners, Newcastle United, the 2004 Carling Cup winners, Middlesbrough, and of course Sunderland. We hope you're all well. We hope you're all fantastic. Hope you've all had a fantastic weekend of international football. Thomas Tuchel's England has taken flight. We're going to discuss that, but we're also obviously going to cover everything breaking in the northeast of this beautiful, beautiful country, Sunderland, Newcastle, and Middlesbrough news, because there is a lot of it. We're going to break down that massive, massive victory for Newcastle United. We're going to talk about Sunderland's promotion hopes and Middlesbrough. Where has it all gone wrong? Right, let's kick things off with Newcastle. It's been a big week. Obviously, the Carabao Cup victory, obviously still fresh in the memories of everyone. Gary Neville has come out and spoken at large. Can you believe it? Shocked me that Gary Neville's done this and come out and said about Newcastle's Cup victory and how astounded he was. It's just saying that they reckons that Newcastle have gotten the balance between passion and emotion correct, as they wrote their name into the history books. Gary Neville is obviously at the forefront of the media, doing all of his podcasts and all this sort of stuff, but saying, and I quote Gary Neville here, they gave Liverpool a real going over in every single way. Obviously, the emotion of the occasion, I even felt quite emotional when that second goal win, and I don't know why. Gary Neville, secret Newcastle fan, can you believe it? Even photos of Michael Carrick came out, Middlesbrough fans in a young Newcastle United top. They're all secretly Newcastle fans. In a way, they went about it. Gary Neville continued. They were brave in everything they did. Yeah, they did win the duels. They did win the second balls. They did play forward, but they did complete and run and harass. They just did everything on the day. Gary Neville, with the nicest words I've ever heard him come out and say about Newcastle United. Steve, obviously, massive, massive victory, mate. There's one that's going to be spoken about for quite some time, a good victory over Liverpool. I think what I like to see here with what Gary Neville is saying is that he's putting it back on what Newcastle did right rather than what Liverpool did wrong. I think there was a lot of talk of what Liverpool should have done or could have done rather than Newcastle's impressive performance. And I just want to also touch on, I don't know if you already have, obviously you probably have on NUFC Matters, but the sighting of Elliot Anderson in the away end is one that's living close to my memory. I think that just goes to show for me as well what happened in the summer. Obviously, that move where you had to sell him. He ended up moving, but he's still obviously a Newcastle lad at heart. To see him in the away and celebrating like he did. I mean, Nottingham Forest fans have been a little bit mixed on social media in response to it. We've had a couple of comments saying Elliot shouldn't be at Nottingham Forest if he wants to celebrate like that, and some saying we get it, he's a Newcastle lad at heart. Let's start off with the question for that for both of the lads. Elliot Anderson, Steve, yay or nay that he was obviously for Newcastle, but yay or nay that he's at a different club celebrating in the away end?
I don't think there's anything wrong with any football player going along to support his team. I can understand why the negativities come from some of the Forest fans. I mean, they are our rivals really for a Champions League space this season. 10 games left to play. Newcastle United and Forest are certainly going to be, up against each other in that race for third and fourth place. Forest obviously got the advantage at the moment, but look, he's a Newcastle lad. He's a Newcastle fan. That doesn't mean that he's not going to give 150% for Forest whenever he's playing against us, and that's what he's done, and he's been part of a very successful team. And as Barry says, Lee Clark, Gaza, Shearer all did it well playing for their clubs, and we do see a lot of it. We do see a lot of this happen. As for the cup final comments by Neville. I think it's been mainly positive from pundits with regards to Newcastle. There's probably been the odd one who has an agenda against Newcastle because of their ownership. But in general, Newcastle have been given the plaudits for a very good performance last weekend. Going into a cup final against Liverpool, as underdogs, because everybody expected Liverpool just to turn up and win. Newcastle put in their most comprehensive performance of the season, and one of the most comprehensive performances at Wembley since the 1950s. So, it was well deserved. It was a great day. Finally got that kind of trophy monkey off our back, which has dogged us for 56 years domestically and 70 years domestically, 56 years, in total as far as winning a cup's concerned. But it was great to see, and I'm pleased that somebody like Elliot Anderson could be a part of it. Get yourself along there and be part of it.
Yep. No, it's fantastic, obviously. Big news, obviously, for Newcastle fans coming out of England as well, Steve. Thomas Tuchel admitting Anthony Gordon's injury does not look good. News that will probably frustrate Newcastle United. Obviously, he was missing for that cup final anyway. But, obviously coming out and saying that, the injury doesn't look good for Anthony Gordon. Any news that might have crossed your desk, Steve, on that one?
It looks very much like a hip injury. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see how it develops over the course of the next couple of days. I mean, from our perspective, he's banned from the next game. We don't play until a week on Wednesday against Brentford at home. He's suspended for that game. That means then there's another few days. He's got a couple of weeks to pull himself round. I don't know. Is the honest answer to it? The rumours are that it's a hip injury. How long that keeps you out for, I really don't know. But look, Harvey Barnes was one of the players who did his bit last weekend. Harvey Barnes had question marks over whether he could play that role. Tino Livramento had question marks over whether he could play a left back. Both of them came in and did sterling jobs on the left hand side. You wouldn't have known that Mo Salah was playing last weekend. So I guess because they've had that little bit of downtime in Dubai this week as well, and had a bit of team bonding, they've got their 10 cup finals now to play, and anybody in that squad last weekend, can hold their head up high and say that they were part of something brilliant and great. And we often say once you win the first one, the rest are easy. Well, Newcastle have got 10 cup finals to win now and get themselves into a Champions League place, out of that Conference League, which, it's nice to be in Europe. We've qualified for Europe, but let's face it, Newcastle and the club want to be in either the Europa League, but preferably the Champions League because of the financial benefits it brings. So, wish Anthony Gordon all the best. Hope the injury isn't too severe. But, I think we've proved it, and Harvey Barnes has proved it. He's more than an able stand-in for Anthony Gordon moving forward into these last 10 games.
Yep. No, looking forward, obviously, to the Town Moor party. Being a dry event, though, Newcastle fans, no alcohol allowed. It's been confirmed that it will be a dry event. Teddy boy, often not dry, my Ted the Mackem. I want to talk to you, obviously, about obviously that Newcastle victory, mate. I mean, first off, the same question to you, mate. Seeing Elliot Anderson in the away end has sparked a little bit of debate from Nottingham Forest. Obviously, I say it's 50-50. Some saying that it's fine. They know where his heart, he's a Newcastle lad. He's in the away and he's only just signed. But some at Nottingham Forest saying that he should be sold, that they don't want to see any player that is not celebrating Nottingham Forest's victory. Can you understand both parties, or do you just think it's a bit of a right?
I don't understand the fans at all on this one, to be honest, mate. It's ridiculous. We've seen Jordan Pickford come to plenty of games and support Sunderland like he has done all of his life. And not a single Everton fan, to my knowledge, has ever complained about that. Footballers are allowed personal lives. I know they live, the majority of them, in the public eye. I get that. But they're allowed their time to themselves. And I don't have a problem with that, to be honest with you. What's the difference between somebody who's like an ambassador of a club like Bobby Charlton was at Manchester United, but he's a Newcastle, he's an Ashington boy at heart, but what would be the problem with going to that? You don't just lose status or lose any professionalism just because you have something that you want to do in your spare time. I think it's a bit silly, to be honest. And good on Elliot Anderson for actually showing his colours and turned up for his hometown team, his home team.
No, absolutely love it. And I honestly think it's fine. It's what a moment for Newcastle in how many odd years. And obviously we saw the stature around, obviously, the Elliot Anderson departure as well, being that we know it was for PSR and stuff like that. Obviously, maybe Elliot, didn't want the move, but he wasn't forcing anything and maybe doing him, his hometown club a favor. Obviously, the money that they brought in from that transfer as well was incredible. Teddy boy, on to the Mackems. Obviously, pushing quite high, obviously up into the championship table as there's 8 games to go. Couple of news breaking stories coming out of SAFC midweek. Obviously, one that we've spoken about at large is the Nectar Triantis call up for the Socceroos. Obviously, not at Sunderland at the moment on loan, but he is being called up by the Australian player. Didn't play against Indonesia, mate, but current Socceroos coach coming out and saying that he has got a big future, and he's been very, very impressed by what Triantis has been able to do this season. Thinks he's come on leaps and bounds and thinks he's got a big part to play in the upcoming Socceroos tournaments. Big raps coming from the current coach who's just taken over. Obviously, you've got a lot to do with him being out on loan. Do you see Triantis now coming back to Sunderland and having a big impact?
I don't know about his impact because it's going to depend on who's still there next season at Sunderland, because obviously if we get promoted, it's going to be difficult for him. If we still end up in the Championship, then I think he's probably going to get his opportunity. He's not playing at centre-back at Hibs. He's actually playing in like a holding midfield role, which is interesting because we never saw that coming, to be honest with you. But apparently doing very, very well. There's comparisons there between the Scottish Premier League and the Championship. I think it's I've just seen Graham's comment there. That's just made me chuckle. That thanks. Listen, Triantis is doing himself big favours. It was a bit shaky his start to life at Hibs when he was on loan there last season. This time around, he's just adding so much to his games. I've actually watched a couple of the Edinburgh derbies. And to be honest, I was really, really impressed by him, to the point that, I'll get shot down for this because, I'll say it anyway. Because of the up and down form of Dan Neil and him potentially being moved on, somebody like Triantis to come in, if he is, doing a job at that level, then I don't see any reason why he could be a squad member and potentially, oust somebody out of that midfield. It's going to be a big change, to be honest, regardless of where we end up. It's going to be a big change in that midfield, because if we get promoted, the likes of Enzo Lafay, obviously that becomes a mandatory transfer. He then becomes our player. We obviously retain the likes of Job. Is Chris Rigg yet up to the rigours of Premier League football? I'd say no, but he's still very, very young. We've got to remember that. So there's going to be changes there. If we don't go up, we lose Job. We potentially lose Dan Neil. We don't get the Enzo Lafay transfer, and somebody will probably come in for Chris Rigg as well. So either way, it's going to be a season of change. And what Triantis has to do is just keep on working the way he is. Physically, he seems to have developed a bit, because he was a little bit lightweight. He's a tall lad, but he's a little bit slender. But he seems to be, I don't know whether he's getting stuck into the deep-fried doner kebabs and Mars bars that Scotland can provide in terms of sustenance. But he seems to be filling out a bit. And more power to the lad, doing really, really well. But I do want to just cover something off in terms of the Geordies game at Wembley. I can't remember seeing a one-sided final than that. To be fair, 2-1 kind of flattered Liverpool at the end. And they literally threw everything in terms of 4 strikers on the pitch. And Steve's right. I think that the player that really most impressed me without being an absolute superstar during the game was Livramento, just keeping Mo Salah. I mean, I think he got a couple of mentions and that was it. I don't remember him having a shot. He wasn't allowed to cut in like where he normally does. So it was a very, very good performance. Dan Burn, I think, it was definitely an eyebrow raiser when he got in the England squad. It was a bit of a surprise. Even to the most diehard of Newcastle fans wouldn't have seen that one coming, I don't think. But again, fantastic. I mean, it was helped that they had the shortest player on the pitch marking him for the corners, of course. That was just bizarre tactics, that. But Burn, for me, I thought was literally, in terms of stature and in terms of performance, head and shoulders above everyone else. I thought he was very calm and very assured for England as well. It was a really good performance. So it's not been a bad week in the Burn household. I think it's for somebody who was playing against Kettering about 14 years ago for Darlington. The lad's done all right, hasn't he?
He's from Blythe.
He's done very well. And that letter from his dad, I mean, I could read that every day of the week. I mean, for someone of his age with his England call up and everything like that, and what a week he's having. And I saw him sitting there next to Jordan Henderson, and I'm sure they would have had a lot to discuss over previous battles. But
it was weird seeing him and Jordan Pickford arm in arm for the national anthem. Is this all right?
It did have a bit of a sting to it, didn't it? Obviously, seeing old foes come together like that. But what a call up for Dan Burn, and obviously, I think it's fantastic for him at such late year. But it also, goes to show that when it comes to under Thomas Tuchel, it's not just going to be about the next generation. It's going to be who's playing well. Thomas Tuchel saying as well that he's going to look at the championship if that's what, that's what's required, that players there that are performing are doing better than those in the Premier League, then, that's what's going to happen. Obviously, Ivan Toney still overlooked as well. He's currently doing quite well in Arabia. But look, we'll see what happens, but we'll talk about obviously Thomas Tuchel in England after the break. But we also want to talk on this one, Teddy Boy. Another breaking news this week for Sunderland is about Kirill Louis-Dreyfus, obviously the owner of Sunderland, saying that they need to follow in Brighton's strategy as Sunderland debt concerns the fans. Now, obviously, the debts had been released this week, and Sunderland have shown that they are in debt just shy of £20 million. Now, this is £20 million owed to the current company of Kirill Louis-Dreyfus, correct, late last year. And they're saying that they could be turned into equity, obviously, but it has raised some eyebrows at Sunderland, obviously, the amount owed to Kirill Louis-Dreyfus. And they're also saying that it might affect this coming summer transfer window, Teddy Boy. Have you looked into this, mate? And have you seen the fans' comments around this one? Because some obviously are quick to jump on Kiri. I think obviously he's not, everyone's favourite every now and then, but from where Sunderland are this season on the pitch, maybe there are still some questions of what's happening off the pitch.
I did see the accounts released and all that sort of thing. I always take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt because, like I say, it's last year's figures.
Yeah.
In terms of transfer outlay, in terms of what we've sold, it's already looking a lot better this year. You get a lot of experts crop up when these financial accounts are released. I'm not worried, to be honest with you. When you look at 20 million is an extremely large amount of money to you and I and everyone listening. In terms of a business of that size, you've got to put it into context. That 20 million is basically probably Kirill Louis-Dreyfus' overdraft. It's all relative. You're talking about a stadium that's worth much, much more than that. It's one of those things where, it's to be expected. We were in a lot worse state before. You had a club that was absolutely borderline bankrupt, and it's a period of financial stability. That they've done a lot with the stadium. They've upgraded a lot of the facilities in the stadium. That all comes at a price. It's they're trying to make the whole match day experience better for the fans with things like the new club shop, even upgrading the PA system, a new pitch being laid, and just making those facilities a lot better than what they were. So that comes at a price. That comes off the bottom line. A lot of what they've spent is one-off spends. So you start and get that back. What we do need to do is encourage attendances. A couple of the midweek games have sort of been around like 32, 33,000. We've had a couple of games like that. It's a little bit quiet in there. They need to basically make it more accessible for people. And people, the Geordies and the Borough fans will slate me for this. If it's kids for £1, it's kids for £1. Get the stadium full, get a new generation of fans in there, and get the place making a noise again. Because to be honest, the last few games, even the one I was at against Hull City, it was just a little bit quiet for my tastes. So let's get behind the team. Let's get in the stadium. Sunderland Football Club, you do your bit and make it more accessible for people. You're talking about Wearside being one of the poorest economic areas in the country. Do your bit. Encourage people to come in. Let them make a noise. And to be honest, that £20 million debt will be absolutely knout in the grand scheme of things.
Yep. No, it is interesting. Obviously, a good question coming in from the chat as well. Get your chats in all show long, and we'll try and get to them. Barry asked you, Ted, looking good for the playoffs, obviously, but he wants to know who would you rather face first. Obviously, you had a bad loss to Coventry coming into the international break, which might have sent some worries through the Sunderland fans. Obviously, Coventry right up there in the playoffs. Not only
Good game.
Not only
Steve Wraith, you're a monster.
They've also come on leaps and bounds under a new manager in Frank Lampard. Obviously, Frank Lampard has got them up and firing, but they've put on a bloody good performance at home against Sunderland to send shockwaves heading into the Sunderland promotion party. Obviously, you've been up there or thereabouts, but Coventry showing you that the playoffs, if made, aren't going to be all too easy, Teddy boy.
Stelios is very upset by it, as you can hear in the background. Stelios is a cat, by the way. He's not like my manservant, to anyone who's just joined in who's never been in before.
My manservant.
He'll be another grave.
Frozen.
What was the question?
How many manservants do you have?
Barry Hogan asks, who would you rather
Yes,
face?
who'd I rather face? Yeah, great question, Barry. I did answer it actually in there. Truthfully, out of anybody in the playoff positions right now, nobody. I don't want to face any of them right now. To be West Brom are starting to play some really good football. They're in and about around there. Burnley were fantastic and kind of only just conceded 10 goals all season. Now they've actually found out how to put the ball in the net as well, which makes them even more dangerous. Coventry did take us apart, but honestly, I'm not just saying it because I don't like Coventry, which I don't. I hate them. I do, honestly. If somebody said, would you rather Newcastle or Coventry win a cup, I'd actually pick the Geordies over Coventry, but there you go.
There you go, they have.
I know. Well, yeah, now it's happened. Coventry, it was more about how bad we were as opposed to how good they were. It was just seemed far too easy for them to get through. I've got no doubt they have got some good players in the squad. I don't know. I don't get it. I think the wheels will come off. I think they've actually, if anything, they've hit form too early. With still 9 or 10 games left to go, I just think, yeah, those defeats are gonna. It's how do they handle that first defeat under Lampard, because they haven't been beaten for a while now, and I just think I don't know how they will react to that. I don't know how Lampard will react to that, because to be honest, I think he's a little bit flaky. So, I mean, my genuine hope is that Middlesbrough get into the playoffs and give us 2 easy wins, and then we're through to Wembley.
Listen, we're going to cover Middlesbrough after the break because it's going to be short and sweet, that's for sure. Obviously, the past 2 results, obviously, a draw against Preston, Teddy Boy, and then the loss against Coventry coming back from the international break. Tough trip to Millwall, no easy place. Sorry, Millwall coming to you, I do apologise, but no easy task to take on. But then a tough trip to West Brom, where Mogga's men will be ready and waiting in a playoff battle. I mean, for me, the Coventry win sent a little bit of shockwaves in terms of where Coventry are at and where Sunderland are at. I mean, Sunderland obviously have lost some big injuries again with Enzo Lafay and stuff like that. But Haji Wright just tore Sunderland's defence apart. Obviously, very, very good player. So, look, it's going to be interesting. I think that game against West Brom for me, for Sunderland fans, is going to be a big, big test to see where they're about. I mean, Coventry have shown that at home, they're quite efficient. And of course, we know in the playoffs, in the championship, there is a back-to-back. There'll be 1 home game, 1 away game. Well, Coventry have shown that at home, they're quite strong, but can they do it away from home? Time will tell. West Brom and Mogga and where they're all at as well will be a good test on Saturday, the 5th of April, which I'm really looking forward to seeing how that one plays out for you, Teddy Boy, as well. Right, it is halfway through the show. We'll come back and we will talk more Sunderland, more Newcastle, a little bit of Middlesbrough, and then we will talk about Thomas Tuchel and his debut as England manager. But it's time for everyone's favourite Troll of the Week.
Okay, some good ones, lads, as always this week. This one from Domino's Pizza. Top 3 best players ever. Number 1, Messi. Number 2, Maradona. Number 3, Anthony, since he left United. This one from Newcastle United Supporters Club. The King and Queen is set to meet Pope next month. Not surprised after that save in the second half. And Christopher Nicholas sent me this after Newcastle won the cup. Thanks, Chris. You'll never sing that. You'll never sing that. Papa John's trophy. You'll never sing that. Thank you, Chris.
Love it.
This one was brilliant as well. When flags were getting made, unfortunately, this Newcastle United fan put FTM on his own flag. And then got... FTM means F the mags, apparently. No, it doesn't. You're long. It does. It doesn't. I've checked. We use SMB. Well done, Martin.
That's
you did
amazing.
Spot. Well done,
Absolutely
Martin.
amazing.
Oh, my God.
Martin, you were 100% right with that. Our friend Jose has been at it again. Tottenham sent a member of their staff to Turkey on Sunday evening to observe the young prodigy Youssef Akiyek during the Fenerbahce and Alaspor game ahead of the summer. Jose Mourinho heard the news and decided to leave the young defender on the bench for the entire game. He's getting his own little section, isn't he, on this programme?
Oh, Jose.
My favourite one this week, though, and this one's for Christopher Nicholas, is this one. If you want a reminder of just how young Chris Rigg is, he passed his driving test today. First try, 7 minors. Probably not the first Sunderland player to pick up a minor. Fantastic. Great stuff. That is your troll of the week this week. Look forward to more cat action next week. Brought to you by Ted's Manservant.
I love it. Have you ever seen Mackham Lift the Cup, his Middlesbrough's new song? The Geordie one's gone out the window.
Hang on. Just Steve, put your hands up if you've won a game at Wembley this decade.
Listen, you know, Papa John's.
Put your hands up if you've ever won the league.
Ryan, I have got this for you, Ryan. Here's one for you.
Thank
Stephen
you.
Kennedy does send us these. If you could run away for a day and do anything, lads, what would you do?
Ooh. Sleep. I've got 2 young kids.
Sleep for Ryan.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Right. Bear with me on this one. There's a bit of time travel involved, Steve.
Oh.
All right.
I'd time travel back and I'd go to Metroland for the day.
Oh, would you?
Yeah. I absolutely. I just explained to Rye. So, Rye, we've got the Metro Centre in Gateshead, which was Europe's biggest shopping centre at one time, but it had this amazing thing called Metroland in it, which is kind of like almost like a mini amusement park within a shopping centre. Right, so there was actually a wooden roller coaster in there. There was there was arcade games, the bowling alley, all that sort of stuff. And there was something about Metroland that was just like, it just came up in conversation online over the course of the week. I thought, yeah, I'd love to do that again. So if I could run away for the day, it would be Metroland, and I'd probably have a McRib while I was there. That's run away for the day. I'll make me dinner at McDonald's with a McRib. Yeah, that's it. On my day saver, my day rover ticket.
Well, I would get a Klingon invisibility cloak, and I would walk through Sunderland and go to Jackie White's Market and get a pink slice.
Oh, hey. Would you actually? You would as well, wouldn't you? I know. You'd have had pink slices when you were at school, though.
It's just because you said Metroland, so I'm just paying you back the compliment. I'm going to Jackie Waits to get a pink slice. I was explaining to the missus what a pink slice was.
You must have had them when you were at school, because you went.
I did, yeah. I went to school in Sunderland. Yeah, I went to school in Sunderland. Yeah, I loved them. Yeah, I mean, for anybody, it's 2 bits of shortbread with jam in the middle and a lovely pink icing over the top of it.
I'm going to have to get the recipe and make some, I think. That's definitely.
Good
well,
stuff.
Now that everyone's hungry, welcome on back to the Northeast Footy Pod. We are talking, obviously, Newcastle's amazing cup win. We're talking Sunderland's promotion hopes, and we are now going to turn our attention to Middlesbrough. And where it has potentially all gone wrong, the last game before the international break was away at Luton Town. Luton Town sitting 20th in the championship. Middlesbrough unable to land a shot on target. Yes, Middlesbrough fans, look away now. It was not a pretty sight at Luton Town. A frustrating afternoon under Michael Carrick again. Michael Carrick copping it from left, right and centre at the moment after that January transfer window where we saw Latte Lath, our number one striker, leave for 22 million. Lots of fans, obviously 50-50 now, saying Carrick should be sacked, Carrick should be in. I believe Carrick's going to be given to the end of the season. It's silly now to give anyone 8 games to see what they can do or to turn it around. It's going to be a summer overhaul, they would think. But how many summer overhauls does Borough need before they get it right? Michael Carrick, unfortunately, looks like he will fall just short of the playoffs once again, with the expected current games, with 8 games to go, to be around the 20-point mark as expected, which won't be enough to get him into the playoffs. Is it a failure on Middlesbrough's behalf if they don't make the playoffs? If you're asking me, it is. Michael Carrick set off at the start of this season saying we need to be in the playoffs. That's where the Borough want to be. And looking at the table and looking at, how many teams around us have faltered as well. Blackburn now sliding down the championship and stuff like that. It's easy to put Middlesbrough in the top end of that echelon when it's on paper, but football's not played on paper, and we can see how frustrating it can be for Borough fans, especially against Luton Town, where they were just made to pay. Izzy Jones, our ex-compatriot, doing ever so well down that right wing, just made us look like fools for letting him go for 5 mil. And then there was other questions around Ian Archer, once again. I mean, this signing is just proving absolutely horrific. I mean, he just looks not match fit. He looks non-game worthy, and he just doesn't look like he's up to the speed of the championship.
Looks like a baller, Ian Archer, doesn't he?
Yeah, he has, mate. He's not good. Lads, I want to talk to you guys quickly about Middlesbrough's current form, and I also want to take it back to your memories of signing anyone in January that just was not match fit. I can't remember a striker or coming in that just did not look up to the speed of the championship footballs in recent memories as much as Ian Archer is bad. That's how bad he's been. I mean, he looks sluggish, he looks slow, his touch is down. This is a bloke that left Man City, went to Leicester City, scored in the Premier League, came down with them, had a decent run in the championship, and then moved away. But honestly, it's been an absolute shocking signing to think we could have him to replace the likes of Latte Lath. Steve, I'll come to you first, mate. Middlesbrough's current run of form, mate. 8 games to go. Prediction around the 20-point mark. I mean, can you see Middlesbrough still making it?
I think it's looking highly unlikely now. I think there's better teams around the playoff situation. You've already earmarked Coventry. Frank Lampard's performed miracles there. Very difficult team to beat, and a team that's got the incentive now as well for that playoff space. It's getting overcrowded, isn't it, in that area? And nobody can write Middlesbrough off. I mean, they could put a little run together, but it's looking increasingly unlikely that the teams around them are going to falter. Like I've said a couple of times on this show over the course of the season, Sunderland have got that knack, really, and they've found that knack of getting points out of games they should have lost, or winning games that they should have drawn. They've had the odd blip. Coventry's, a bogey team for them. It always has been, always will be. But they've over the course of the season, Sunderland have managed to avoid that. So Sunderland, I think, will be there in the playoffs. It's going to be interesting, isn't it, to see who you end up with, though. I mean, the other question, which again we've discussed on here many times, is are Leeds going to fall apart? Your favourite manager, Chris Wilder, is always got the knack of winning this division. He knows how to win it, and Sheffield United will win that division. I've got no doubt about it. And it'll be who finishes second. Scott Parker's got the bit between his teeth, hasn't he, as well? With Burnley, they seem to be really, really on fire at the minute as well. So it's exciting. It's an exciting run in. It's not a boring championship where one team's run away with it. And the playoffs likely as well. That it's likely that somebody will come in. Me and Ted were discussing this last week. The week before, when we were saying that, it always seems to be that team that creeps into the playoffs that then ends up winning it, and Sunderland did it the very first season, and, nothing's really changed over the years. The team that finishes third tends to be the team that doesn't get promoted. But Middlesbrough, it's sad because Carrick's a decent manager, but I think I've said it before to you, Rye, it looks like it's gone stale. It does look like it's gone stale. A lot of it's not through his through any fault of his own. He's had players sold from under his nose. He's had, just as he's trying to build things, he's had the carpet pulled from underneath him, and it's sad for him because he is. We celebrate Eddie Howe last week being an English coach, the first one since Harry Redknapp to win a trophy. Michael Carrick's got that kind of caliber. He's that kind of manager who would probably do quite well. Maybe it's time for him in his professional career, and maybe it's time for Middlesbrough as a football club to part ways. And I'm pretty sure Carrick will go on to success moving forward. But yeah, I think the playoffs, they're an outside bet. And I just think there's better teams, and maybe it's time for a rebuild, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, the rebuilds seem to happen too often in Middlesbrough's regard. Now talks of Crystal Palace coming in for our chief operating officer. Much what Newcastle had to deal with the Dan Ashworth could be a Middlesbrough turn of events. Kieran Scott, who is our chief football director, is being looked at to replace the outgoing one at Crystal Palace. Now, Kieran Scott has done a fantastic job at Middlesbrough since coming in. He has brought in the signings of Latte Lath for $5 million, turning him into $22 million. Morgan Rogers, who came in for a measly $4 million, turning him into $18 million. You can see what he's now doing at Aston Villa. So there has been good signs and good signings coming in, but unfortunately, just like Steve touched on, the outgoings in January have hurt Middlesbrough time and time again. This season, Latte Lath. Last season, Morgan Rogers. Teddy Boy, much to your happiness, mate, Middlesbrough have fallen quite far. I mean, the Luton Town display, mate, was one of the worst I've seen. In terms of, we just had to thank, Travers in goal, and that was it. We didn't register a shot on target, mate. We couldn't break them down. The loss of Ben Doak with injury, the loss of not having any fit centre backs. We've got Johnny Howson and our left back starting as centre backs at the moment. Johnny Howson, 37-year-olds. Neto Borges signing as a left back / left winger in the summer is now our starting centre back. Such is our row of injuries. I mean, where have you seen it all go wrong for Middlesbrough, Michael Carrick, this season?
Yeah, I mean, if you'd said to me that, even firstly, if you'd said that we were above Middlesbrough at this stage in the season in the division, I'd have thought that Middlesbrough must be having an absolute nightmare. And it just seems to be going that way. I had us both tipped pretty heavily to get into the playoffs. I think it's you're right. It's the recruitment side of things that's a lot to blame here. I don't know what it is. I just don't see Johnny Woodgate as a good coach either. I don't know why that is. I've seen Middlesbrough fans make comments about that. He's not an out-and-out defensive coach. He failed as a manager there, and he failed badly as a manager there. And you just kind of think, well, why still have that kind of losing mentality around? You need fresh ideas among the staff. I agree with Steve. I think that Michael Carrick has got caliber about him. We saw that when he took temporary charge of Manchester United, by the way, as a young lad, and he what was it like? So maybe 2 or 3 games, but did a cracking job with him. And he talks like a real football man. I know that's a bit of a cliche thing to say, but he talks like a real football guy. And I just think he needs better coaching around him, for one. And they just need to stop hitting this ridiculous kind of like kamikaze button when it comes around to the January transfers, because selling Latte Lath at that stage, what does that actually do for the club? Because for me, it does nothing. Keep until the end of the season, go, right, Emmanuel, you want to be away, no problem, mate. Get us promoted. You can go with our blessing. You can even sign the contract now if you want. Just help us get out of this division. And that would have been, the more sense, because you do not get a chance to spend that money in close proximity to that. In fact, did he go after the transfer deadline?
He did because MLS.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So that is bad business management in terms of the football club. I'm not one that's going to sit here and slate Steve Gibson, because out of any owner, he's put an enormous amount into that. All right, he let the round badge go because of an argument with the missus, but other than that, he's not been bad at it. He's put a lot of his own money into that club.
Yeah,
but you just think like he's starting to make questionable decisions, and football fans are very unforgiving. they have very short memories as to what they've done previously. So, yeah, I think it's a bit of an eye of the storm right now. In terms of it's partly management, it's partly the running of the club, it's partly the transfer policy, and to be honest, the players you have still got some good players in amongst that, albeit yes, some of them are playing out of position. Luke O'Nine's been doing that for 2 seasons, and he still gives it his all. One thing you will never question about the lad is he doesn't stop trying, and I just feel like some of the Middlesbrough players are already on the beach, mate. I think they've just stopped trying, some of them.
Yeah, look, honestly, the January signings haven't inspired us whatsoever. We've seen Ealing Jr. come in, who is starting for the England under-21s, obviously, with Hayden Hackney. I mean, we've had to use him as a left back. He has looked solid there, but I mean, I keep touching on it. But the Kelechi Iheanacho signing has just been absolutely so far from what Middlesbrough needed. And it's just been, an incredible run of bad Januaries as well. Now, Middlesbrough obviously still up there. Michael Carrick will still keep the faith. We will keep the faith as Borough fans. But unfortunately, if it does mean another season without the playoffs, without pushing to the top half of the EFL echelon, then unfortunately there are going to be questions asked. Michael Carrick's the longest serving manager now in the Championship. He has been there 3 years, and I think his tactics and his ability to have a plan B have been drawn into question more times than one. And obviously our current injury record is disgusting. We have had a horror injury run last season. At the end of last season, we were playing bare minimum. Well, it's happened again. Now, Michael Carrick has come out and said he puts that down to bad luck. But how many times can you put down a bad injury run to bad luck before you have to investigate your training methods and how hard you are pushing these boys week in, week out, especially when most of these injuries are coming off the training pitch, not off match day. Can you believe it? Anyway, Middlesbrough fans, we'll look forward to the last 8 games of the season with optimal faith and see if Middlesbrough can turn it around. There is still a mathematical possibility. And while that's there, hopefully, obviously the big news as well, Kieran Scott being linked with Crystal Palace, just tying that off as well for Middlesbrough fans. Crystal Palace looking at Kieran Scott as their potential director of football. If he was to leave, then Middlesbrough are in for a massive overhaul, not only on the pitch, but off the pitch if they do fail for playoffs. Touching on the breaking news as well, coming out of the England camp, Anthony Gordon has returned to Newcastle. We touched on this right at the start of the show, but we'll recap on it. Anthony Gordon has been sent back to Newcastle in what's appearing to be a hip injury. We asked Steve, obviously, at the start of the show if he had any news on it. He hadn't heard anything other than that it was apparent hip injury and they'll wait to assess. But Harvey Barnes obviously looking the goods for Newcastle United. Steve, on to England, mate, and Thomas Tuchel getting his underway in what is the New England scheme. Dan Burns starting at centre back. I love that. He went straight into the team. And we saw a young Lewis Skelly getting his debut on the next to Dan Burn, obviously getting his goal as well. Harry Kane in a 2-0 win over Albania. Thomas was nonchalant in the remarks at the end, obviously talking about Dan Burns' performance, but saying a lot more about Bellingham and how he can't do it alone, saying that England rely on him way too much to do something special to carry an England team. Your thoughts, mate, on Dan Burn and his inaugural appearance?
Fantastic, isn't it? Really, it's a fairy tale story. It's a Roy of the Rovers story, coming from pushing trolleys to playing non-league to being at Newcastle United. He's captained the team. He's played in the Champions League. He scored against PSG in the Champions League. He's been to 2 cup finals. He saved the team from relegation. He's done all of that in the space of 4.5 years. And now he's had recognition at international level by the New England manager. And he didn't look out of place. He's header skimmed the bar. But there's a few people after last weekend had Dan Burn down as first scorer for England. The odds were sliced like he was down to 16-1, I think, for the first goal there, as opposed to 66-1 last weekend for the cup final. But yeah, listen, it's a great story, and I mean it's a credit to Eddie Howe as well as Dan Burn. I mean, Eddie Howe has turned Dan Burn into an England international. He's not only turned him into an England international, but he's also, given that kind of opportunity to Tino Livramento. I mean, he was doing well at Southampton, but he's come on leaps and bounds at Newcastle after he's come back from an ACL, and he's now in the England team. Anthony Gordon is in the England team. Wasn't in the England team. Wasn't ever present until he came to Newcastle. And of course, Lewis Hall, who's out for the rest of the season, probably would have been selected as well because Thomas Tuchel gave him his first start at Chelsea. So yeah, listen, it's a sign that Newcastle are in a good place. That we've got all of these international players who play for us, and getting away from England, you've got Isak away with Sweden on international duty. You've got Fabian Schär still playing for Switzerland. The list is endless. So we are in that kind of 90s era that the entertainers all played for international teams. But yeah, Dan Burn, fantastic. It's great. He's such a humble guy as well. He's not one of these braggarts. He's not there's not an arrogant bone in the guy's body. You can see how much it means to him, and he's humbled by the opportunity. But the one thing you get with Dan Burn is 100% effort. And I saw the criticism that was levelled at him for being picked. People saying this is ridiculous. It's a backward step. They were pointing at Henderson and Kane and Burn and saying the over 30s brigade. It's ridiculous. What's Tuchel trying to do? We had all that kind of attack on his nationality, saying there was no wonder he picked these because he's German. We heard all of that rubbish. It's at the end of the day, Tuchel's a great. He's a great manager. He's a great coach, and he'll give it 100%. I'm sure for England, and I think he'll do his best. He's also, I think, very complimentary of Newcastle, and I still feel that at some point there could be almost like a job exchange. I think once Eddie Howe's job is finished at Newcastle, because ultimately it will happen at some point. If Tuchel's free and a free agent, you could see Tuchel coming to Newcastle you could see Tuchel coming to Newcastle as a Newcastle manager. I think he would fit the profile of a Newcastle manager very well. He's very eloquent. He's very composed. And he could probably take Newcastle to the next level as well, But Eddie's still got work to do. I still think Eddie will continue at Newcastle for the foreseeable future. But I also think Eddie Howe will be an England manager at some point, and I think he'll be welcomed with open arms at the FA. But it's exciting, I guess. Internationally, it's World Cup qualifiers. We've got a lot to look forward to. An England manager's job doesn't really start though until you get to the big tournaments, and that's when he'll be judged. Qualification is very easy for an England manager. It's getting to the finals and how you do in the finals, and he's got a hard act to follow because Gareth Southgate did a really good job. I don't care what anyone says about Gareth Southgate. He got us to finals, and that's the difference between him and all of those who went before him. The fell at the final hurdle, quarterfinals, semi-finals. Gareth didn't. He fell in the final. So he's up there with Alf Ramsey, albeit he didn't win something. He's second behind Ramsey for achievements as an England manager. So Tuchel's got big shoes to fill. But Tuchel is a winner, as Dunnell says, and I agree that that there is a chance here that England could win something, and it would be great to see Dan Burn go on and do that as a centre half for England.
It is funny you mentioned Gareth Southgate and his success. Obviously, his last job before the England job was Middlesbrough, having been sacked when we were fourth in the league. There has been rumours and talks that could we pull Sir Gareth Southgate out of retirement now to come back to Middlesbrough to finish the job that he started. Obviously, he was the manager that saw us relegated from the Premier League. One. Exactly. Well, and then we'll win the Papa John's, and then we'll be at Wembley. Yeah, look at this. We're going to talk, obviously, what's next for the next couple of teams. Obviously, international break as well is still on for the next week. Sunderland will be taking on Millwall this week, obviously, in their return on Saturday. Newcastle don't have a game till around 3rd of April, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, against Brentford. And
Correct.
then Middlesbrough, obviously, this weekend at home to Oxford United. Just a quick look ahead, Teddy boy, in case that the show does come in on Sunday at Sunderland, coming back from the international break, 8 games to play. They have got Millwall at home. Millwall have been up and down. They are going with a win-loss ratio. Josh Coburn, the Middlesbrough striker, is doing ever so well there since coming back from injury. And obviously, they've got Lord Voldemort, as I like to call him, Alex Neil, as their coach, who is returning to Sunderland as well, which is going to have a bit of a story and a bit of an irk to it as well, as Sunderland fans remember Alex Neil very well. How are you seeing Sunderland against Millwall, mate, this weekend?
It's a great chance to bounce back, to be honest, right? Yeah, obviously, Alex Neil, the last time he managed a team at the Stadium of Light, I was there. It was Mrs. Ted's first ever game at the Stadium of Light, and we got slaughtered 5-1 by Stoke. So I think he enjoys coming to the Stadium of Light. They've got some good players, you know. Coburn, obviously, I do actually like Coburn. Obviously, he'd stay on his feet a little bit more, but that's just one of them things. Macaulay Langstaff is there as well, who, you know, as a lower league striker, absolutely brilliant.
Is he in Home Alone?
Not in Millwall.
Duncan Watmore as well, obviously, and George Honeyman, former Sunderland captain, as well, is there. So we know quite a few of the players that are coming to play against us. It's always a physical battle. It's never an enjoyable game against Millwall. I think that the rest will have done our players a lot of good. There's question marks over Dennis Serkin's fitness. He had to come out of the England under-21 squad, which is a real shame because that was his first call-up as well, but I'm sure it won't be the last. There's going to be question marks over how that team lines up, but overall, a much-needed rest. Enzo Lafay is going to be probably involved from the bench, so he's coming back as well, which a player of that standard is so important for this run-in of 8 games as well. I can see us absolutely trouncing them. I know I said that about the Coventry game, but I'm not giving up hope. Incidentally, it's 40 years since we won away at Coventry, and we still haven't done it yet. So one day it'll happen, I'm sure. That's just the epitome of a bogey team. That, but all being said, fresh legs, fresh approach to the game against Millwall. I don't expect too much of a challenge from them. I'm going to go for a very famous scoreline that we beat Millwall by, when the Jarrah Arra scored 4 against them. I'm going to go... I'm going to go 4-0. I'm going to go 4-0 to Sunderland, and I can see... Yeah, I can just see a bit of style back in our play again. I think we need to go back that high press.
There you go. Interesting. Give me a quick prediction as well. England, Latvia, obviously in the midweek as well.
It's Dan Burn hat trick, isn't it? He's just like everything he touches just turns to gold at the minute, you know. Listen, this should be a comfortable game for England. One thing I do want to say just before I know we were running out of time a little bit. What I was impressed by with Tuchel was his post-match game interview. Now I'm used to hearing even if England had managed to stumble to a 2-0 win against somebody like Albania, and Gareth Southgate would have given it the old, the lads have done well, they executed the game plan, I've got no complaints. Tuchel wasn't happy with it. He said we didn't get the ball out to the wide players enough, we didn't get them involved in the game, we're getting them involved too deep, they weren't using their attacking prowess. He saw what was wrong with that, and as much as he was happy with the 2-0 win, you can see his way of thinking is so much better. Yeah, I concede what Steve says. The Southgate got us to finals, but we've never ever had an easy run like it in our history to those finals that he still managed to fail at as soon as we came across a decent team. I think Tuchel is an absolute winner. Latvia game, mate. Tell you what, let's go for it again. Let's go 4-0.
4-0. Stevie lad, obviously Sunderland taking on Millwall next week. Give us a quick prediction, mate, and obviously your scoreline you think for England, Latvia.
A lot closer to Sunderland and Millwall. I think Millwall's again, it's a tough game. Games are coming thick and fast in the Championship. I still think it'll be a win for Sunderland. I'm going to go for a more conservative 2-1 in that game. As for England, Latvia, I think it'll be another 2-0. I think it's always difficult when a new manager comes in, and he'll be looking at things, won't he? I mean, it's a qualifier, but he'll be looking at things and looking at different things, what worked, what didn't work. I don't think England are going to be goal happy under Tuchel. I think they'll be very careful, very sensible, but very solid at the back. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for England versus Latvia.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going 2-0 as well. I reckon Morgan Rogers, ex-Borough, even though everyone's calling him the Man City starlet, he was 6 months at Middlesbrough, and I'll never forget it, and I'll hang on to that till the day I die. Morgan Rogers, the Middlesbrough star, will score for England against Latvia, and I think Dan Burn will get a cheeky header in there as well to start his campaign. and what I can see is a bright future considering his age for England for the next couple of years at least anyway. Just lastly, lads, Middlesbrough taking on Oxford at home in what's going to be a game where number one Middlesbrough fan, just wants a shot on target. Is it that hard to ask for a shot on target? That'd be great. We didn't see one last game. Let's get a shot on target at the Riverside. I'm going to go Middlesbrough in this reverse fixture, by the way, won 6-1, our biggest win in a long, long time. That was away at Oxford late last year. But in the reverse fixture at the Riverside, it's going to be a tough old affair because it's a completely different Middlesbrough team. I'm hoping for at least a 3-0 victory for the Middlesbrough just to get some shots on targets and do a little bit of a shushing to those doubters as we hope to turn in the last 8 games. Teddy boy, Middlesbrough, Oxford, mate. Oxford having a shocking run as they return to the championship, looking like they'll go back down. Middlesbrough, though, can they register a shot on target?
I think they'll get a couple on target this time around, mate. Yeah, I think it should be a brighter end. It's probably one of those games where Michael Carrick's looking at that and going, "Oh, thank God for that." You know, it's a bit of an opportunity just to stave off the inevitable. You know, yeah, mate. Oxford, they've tried their best, and I think it's getting a little bit like a gulf between League One and the Championship, to be honest. So Oxford, I can't see offered a major threat at all. I think I still think you're iffy at the back, but I can see a comfortable win. So I'm going to say 3-1 for the
3-1. And Stevie lad,
I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw.
Yeah, look, honestly, I wouldn't put it past Middlesbrough at the moment. And the only thing we've got going for us is a good goalkeeper in Travers. Middlesbrough fans, it is last 8 games of the season. Can they make it? Sunderland fans, last 8 games of the season. Can they hold on? Obviously, it's going to be a big, big ending. Stay tuned on this podcast. We'll be back next week to talk about more Northeast football. Good luck to Dan Burn against Latvia midweek as well in what has been a sensational call-up to the England national team. Newcastle fans, you have got Brentford coming up very, very soon. What's next for Newcastle now that they have got the silverware in their trophy cabinet? What can they focus on towards the end of the season? We'll ask Steve that next week. We'll look at the results and everything to come on Northeast Football right here next week. Stay tuned. Make sure you consider giving the guys a like, commenting down below and subscribing. It really does help at NUFC Matters, at Ted the Mackham and at Invictus. Get Teddy the Mackham at least to halfway to where we are. The lad wants to catch up. He keeps stroking the beard, but I tell you what, he needs some love. So make sure to check out we're going to talk about that off air about your presentation. We're not on radio anymore, mate, and you rocking up half asleep as well. I'm rolling out of bed, this lad. Righto,
wow.
Take care. I love each and every one of you. Take care. Have a fantastic week and good luck to each other. And we'll see you all next week right here on the Northeast Three's a Crowd.
Three's a Crowd podcast will return. That's not a threat. It's a promise.